Flotation costs. So what are flotation costs? Flotation costs represent the expenses incurred upon the issuance of new bonds or stock. I prefer issuance costs. That's just my own personal preference. The academic world it's like the terminology of like floating a bond issue. So the anyway, I just prefer issuance. So anyway, so we incremental cash flows of a project typically reduce the NPV since they increase the initial costs. I.e. the initial cash flow. So the amount raised or the issue size is the needed proceeds divided by 1 minus the percent of the flotation costs. The percent flotation cost is a weighted average based on the cost of issuance of each funding source. So for the most part, stock issuance is generally more expensive than bond issuance. Stock issuance can be in the neighborhood of 6 to 8%. Bond issuance is in the neighborhood of 1 to 2% for a corporation. So finishing up the chapter, the quick quiz. How do we determine the equity cost of capital? We have two methods for determining the equity cost of capital. The first being the CAPM or capital asset pricing model. The second being the DDM or dividend discount model. So how do we estimate a firm or project beta? The formula for beta is the covariance of the asset with the market divided by the variance for the market. So we would take that information and calculate the beta. We can also use industry or project betas, as we saw when we were doing our examples. How does leverage affect beta? Any type of leverage, whether it be operating or financial, is going to increase beta. It's going to increase risk. So, as we saw in the examples we worked through. So, how do we determine the weighted average cost of capital? So, the weighted average cost of capital is we take the weight in stocks and we multiply that by the required rate of return for stocks. If we have preferred stock, we would take the weight in preferred stocks multiplied by the required rate of return for preferred stocks. And then finally, we take the yield to maturity or required rate of return on debt, multiply it by its weight, and then multiply that by 1 minus the tax rate. And those all three added up would give us the weighted average cost of capital. So, how do flotation costs affect capital budgeting process? Flotation costs, costs. They actually increase the cost of a project. They're an increase in the initial cost, so they're going to increase the negative cash flows, so they'll reduce the net present value of any project. So that is the end of chapter 13.